The rusted barn stood abandoned for 3 years, its weathered frame a forgotten relic on the edge of town. No one ventured near it, there was no reason to. But on this moonlit night, 2 strangers, drawn by forces they couldn't explain, would step through its splintered doors within minutes of each other. Neither had seen the place before. Neither knew the other existed. Yet both were pulled toward the same corner, the same pile of rotting hay, with the certainty of men chasing a half-remembered dream. Finn Talbot, a scrawny orphan, arrived first. His small frame trembled from cold and hunger, his threadbare coat offering little protection against the biting wind. 3 years on the streets had sharpened his instincts, but nothing prepared him for what he found inside. A worn leather satchel leaned against the far wall, its contents spilling slightly in the pale moonlight. Papers, old and yellowed, bore his name in careful script across the top. Before he could grasp the impossibility of it, heavy footsteps crunched through the dried leaves outside. Silas Ward stumbled in, reeking of whiskey and despair. His red-rimmed eyes carried a pain no bottle could drown. He froze, not noticing the boy at first, his gaze locked on the same satchel. Among the papers was a photograph, a family portrait he thought had burned with everything he'd loved. His wife and daughter, smiling, frozen in time. The boy and the man locked eyes across the dark barn, each recognizing something impossible. They had no reason to be here, no connection to each other, yet both knew the satchel held answers that would unravel their lives. Finn's heart pounded, fear gripping him like ice. Strangers meant trouble, thieves, drunks, or worse. His fingers brushed the rusted knife hidden in his coat, muscles tensing for a fight. Silas, swaying slightly, instinctively reached for his hip, only to remember his revolver was long gone, sold for another drink. The silence between them crackled with suspicion, the satchel lying like a coiled snake, its contents promising truths neither was sure they wanted. Finn moved first, driven by desperation. His small hands reached for the papers bearing his name, birth certificates, property deeds, bank records, all stamped with the territorial governor's seal. The documents hinted at a past he didn't understand, a life he'd never known. Silas's voice cut through the dark, sharp and low. "Touch that, kid, and I'll break your fingers." The threat carried weight, but there was no cruelty in it, just a man protecting something sacred. Finn froze, his hand hovering over the satchel. Up close, he saw more, dates that aligned with his fragmented memories, names that stirred something deep within. "How'd you know to come here?" Silas asked, his voice barely a whisper. Finn had no answer. He'd simply known, as if the barn had called to him. Silas, too, had felt it. A pull stronger than whiskey, leading him to this moment. Before either could say more, the sound of hooves thundered across the plains. Multiple riders, moving fast, straight for the barn. Finn's instincts screamed. He snatched the satchel, clutching it to his chest. The leather felt warm, alive. Silas, surprisingly agile for a drunk, yanked him toward a ladder to the loft. "Up, now," he hissed. "Keep that bag quiet unless you want federal marshals asking why you're holding stolen papers." Finn's eyes widened at federal, but he climbed, fear making him light. Through gaps in the barn's weathered boards, they saw 6 men in dark coats dismount, their horses snorting steam in the cold. These weren't local lawmen. Their movements were too precise, their badges glinting with authority. "Spread out," a gravelly voice ordered. "The informant said they'd be here. Find those documents." Finn pressed his face to a crack, watching the men search with military efficiency. Silas crouched beside him, his whiskey breath mixing with the musty hay. How did these men know about the satchel? Who was the informant? Below, boots echoed as the agents scoured the barn. Finn's fingers traced the satchel's contents, feeling gold coins sewn into the lining. His pulse raced. Then he found a hidden compartment. A brass key slipped into his palm, engraved with numbers he'd carried for years on a torn scrap of paper from the woman he'd thought was his mother, dead in an alley. Silas glimpsed the key, his own memories stirring. He'd seen its twin around his daughter's neck the day she died in a fire that destroyed his world. An agent's boot hit the ladder's first rung. Finn's breath caught, but a sudden commotion outside shattered the tension. Gunfire cracked, horses whinnied, and voices shouted. "Someone's shooting from the ridge," the lead marshal barked. "Williams is down." The agents scrambled, their search turning to chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the night, but the shooters stayed hidden. Silas grabbed Finn's arm. "Those aren't bandits. Someone else wants that bag." Finn peered through the crack, spotting a new figure among the shadows, a woman, her silhouette achingly familiar. Her voice sliced through the night. "Margaret Talbot, Federal Marshal, Territorial Mining Division. Lay down your arms." Finn's world tilted. Margaret Talbot, his mother, was supposed to be dead. Yet here she stood, alive, commanding men with cold authority. Silas tightened his grip on Finn, sensing betrayal. The satchel's papers revealed more, a deed naming Finn Talbot and Silas Ward joint owners of the Copper Ridge mining territory, effective upon Samuel Ward's death. Silas's blood ran cold. Samuel, his brother, had vanished after a mine collapse that killed dozens, including Silas's family. He died in a jail cell 3 months ago, leaving behind a fortune in copper. The gunfire intensified, bullets splintering the barn's walls. Finn read the deed's fine print: both heirs had to survive to 18 and claim the mine together, or the survivor inherited everything, if the other's death was ruled accidental. Margaret's plan crystallized. She hadn't come to save her son, she'd come to kill him, framing it as an accident to claim the mine. Smoke curled through the floorboards as Margaret's men set the barn ablaze. Her voice dripped with false warmth. "Finn, sweetheart, come down. Mama's here." The lie made Finn's stomach churn. She'd left him on the streets, shaping him into a desperate pawn for this moment. Silas stuffed the deed and key into his shirt. "She'll kill us both, kid. If I run with these, she'll chase me, not you." A scarred man climbed the ladder, his knife gleaming. Silas recognized the scars, burns from the mine explosion that killed his family. This man had worked for Samuel, now for Margaret. Finn spotted a second brass key on the man's belt, identical to theirs. Margaret needed both to access the mine's deepest shafts, where Samuel had hidden proof of a massive copper deposit. The man lunged at Finn. Silas tackled him, their struggle silent but brutal. Finn grabbed the fallen knife and, with a trembling hand, stabbed the attacker, ending his life. The weight of the act crushed him, but it freed Silas. He took the second key, understanding its value. Smoke thickened, flames licking the loft. Silas spotted a weak wall section and kicked it with Finn, creating an escape. As they prepared to jump, Margaret appeared below, her gun aimed at Finn. Her badge gleamed, her maternal mask gone. Before she could fire, Silas leaped, knocking her down. The shot went wild. Finn jumped, clutching both keys, and ran into the night, the governor's office 20 miles away. Margaret's men pursued, but a new force arrived, Governor Mitchell's enforcement team, tracking Margaret's illegal operations. They surrounded her as Silas, bleeding but alive, exposed her crimes. She murdered her husband for that mine. The boy has proof. 3 months later, Finn and Silas claimed their inheritance in a bustling courthouse. No longer an orphan or a drunk, they used their wealth to build schools, clinics, and fair labor systems, transforming the territory. Margaret died in prison, her conspiracy unraveled by the keys and documents. The barn, rebuilt as a school bearing their names, stood as a testament to their unlikely bond, a family forged not by blood, but by survival and sacrifice.